the city was projecting that the upgrades would cost about $150 million. Then on December 13th, your website posted a figure of $207 million. So I'm wondering how you went from 207 to 224.
Well, Dorian will answer a detailed question, but I'll give you the first overlay of this one. The first figure of $150 million was a static number that didn't include inflation and construction costs and technology as we go forward. As we begin to get further and further into the design stage, we are seeing now what those numbers are going to look like. So Dorian, you give details of what that means, because we're actually applying for federal financing in P3, and there's many requirements of what we do. So Dorian, you want to go ahead and provide that?
Certainly. So in December, we tabled a report with the executive committee that had an updated number that reflected our as-built costs through to 2016. That was $207 million plus or minus a contingency of 15%. Doing our due diligence and continue to work through the federal P3 process, we've determined that an upset maximum for this would be $224 million, if delivered by the DBFOM design, build, finance, operate, maintain model.
We're trying to show this is the maximum cost as we see it right now, and we certainly believe that as we go forward on the application and we have the market come to us as well, they may say that the numbers are different and likely lower than that. We want to be as transparent as possible to show exactly what we believe will be the case today. This is a very complex, technology-wise, very complex facility. It's not like building a stadium. It's much more complex than that, and many hands will be involved with the construction. So we will continue to keep the public informed as to what those costs are as we go forward.
What is the likelihood or expectation of federal funding?
We certainly hope it's going to be the case. That's why we're applying for it. Again, we would be, I think the taxpayer would be disappointed if we didn't have access to $50 million of federal funding for this.
Why 50?
Well, around $50 million is 25% of the eligible cost of this project. So we're hopeful that the federal government will accept the application, and that's the recommendations that we go forward on that one.
Is that one of the chief reasons for selecting a P3 model for this?
It's a big motivator. I mean, certainly when you look at, again, the idea of contributions by the senior government for this, we're meeting federal requirements on the environment, and they're talking about P3s as being a model for the future for infrastructure, and it would be irresponsible for us not to look at that as a contribution to lower the exposure of taxpayer dollars on this.
Is this the first we're hearing of a P3 option, or is that always in the works?
Well, we've looked at P3s as options before, and certainly the stadium is a modified P3 already with.
But for the water treatment plant?
It's been discussed informally, and this is the recommendation by the administration that we do that for all the reasons we've stated here today.
Any idea who the private partner would be?
Oh, no, the market will decide that. When we go to market for the construction, that's down the road a ways.
Well, the P3, is that like they're just involved in the construction of the facility, a private operator, like they won't be involved in the operation of the facility as well?
It's design, build, finance, operate, maintain.
Oh.
But they will be, the ownership rests with the city. The staff that are there today will be there today, and they'll be trained to a higher level because this is new technology. So they will maintain and operate it, but it's owned by the city.
How is this going to make the process faster, if you can say in so many words?
Well, this application for P3 is a funding model. It isn't necessarily the fastest. It is the way we're accessing federal money. But we have to have this constructed by December 31st, 2016. And under this model, we can meet those deadlines. And Brent, I'm not sure if you have any comments, or Dorian in addition to that, but it's not a question of speed as much as this is the right model for costing surety and for getting federal money under the program.
How deadline do you think, if you don't make it, what are the consequences of that?
That's, I don't want to be coy, but that's hypothetical. We will have this constructed by December 31st, 2016. That's what we have to have those under federal regulations and provincial regulations.
Is the private partner contributing any of the capital, like any of the $224 million?
Ultimately, it's public money for that, but there'll be some financing through there. You want to speak about that, Dorian?
Certainly, the P3 model DBFOM has the private partner contributing capital, putting their capital at risk, although it is repaid through a 30-year concession by the city. So
it'd be a similar structure to what we've talked about with the stadium as far as the city's repayment goes?
Similar. This one has the contractor obligated for a 30-year concession period, operating, maintaining as well. So they have private equity at risk, which provides us a high level of surety that we get good performance out of it.
So how much of the financing would possibly come from the private?
Our models show about $118 million of private equity or private financing, although that's not a cash contribution, that's financing for the project that is repaid over the 30-year operating period.
But of the 224 million, how much would be from the private?
About 118.
So a huge amount.
That's not a contribution, that's that's financing that is part of the 30-year operating agreement.
So this brings discipline to the project, that the private company that actually built this will work as much as they can to make this as effective and efficient as possible, both in the operation of it and the construction costs will be held down because they're sharing some of the risk of this.
I'm just not sure I'm understanding, because of my limited financial knowledge, is it fair to say then that 118 million of the 224 million is coming from private, or is that the money that the city needs to upgrade the plant, or because it's over 30 years, does that mean that we shouldn't look at it that way?
Well, it's private financing, but it's the same as them lending money to the project. The city pays it back over the course of 30 years. So it's not a cash contribution, it's just simply a financing, so they have their own capital at risk in the project.
It's like interim financing, they're paid back by the city over time, over the 30-year contract period. But they have a financial exposure to it that otherwise wouldn't happen on a straight contract building.
So as far as ownership goes, obviously long-term, you're saying the city will retain ownership?
The city always owns that facility. It is owned by the city.
But, I mean, if there's that much money going in from a private individual or company or whatever, I mean, is it a partnership essentially then until that's paid back, or?
Well, it's only for the, it certainly is they're sharing the risk of the construction. That gives them discipline to ensure that they're tight on their costs.
Mm-hmm.
But the ownership, we are paying the back through public monies. We own it, and we'll control that facility through the life of the 30 years over this 30-year period.
I'm interested, you use the word protection. We need to protect our employees. I mean, why would you use that phrase?
Because this is maintained and operated by the company. They will use city employees, so no one loses their jobs here. They have work here, and they're going to have the jobs like they had before, and they'll have more training to meet the new technology standards.
That is just the idea of protection implies that there's I guess, an inherent threat in having a private partner in this.
No threat. No, just the word that some may say that because this is owned and operated by a private company that workers would lose their work, and they will not.
Okay. There is a lot of criticism and I think maybe fear from certain people in certain aspects, union environments and that sort of thing, of a public-private partnership. Are you prepared for criticism that might come your way for this model?
I think when people understand